Now, let's welcome Dr. Wan. She's a research fellow here in LKCNHM. While her research interest covers conservation biology and history of natural heritage, she also has a passion for fireflies. She's sharing about the cool things you probably did not know about fireflies in Singapore. Without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Wan.
Thank you, Alice. All right, let's see this one. Okay, all right, I hope everyone is seeing my screen right now. All right, hello everyone. Thank you for attending my talk. Thank you for your time. My name is Wan. Today I'm going to talk about my favorite subject, probably yours favorite subject too, fireflies. Not only the glowing facts about fireflies, but I will also tell you some stories that have not been told before, or maybe you never, or maybe have not been revealed before. Okay, so here are actually 9 basic questions that you maybe already know the answers. Let's take a look at the very basic question. What are fireflies? Okay, so well, as you may already know, fireflies are actually beetles, not flies. They belong to a beetle family called Lampyridae, which means torchbearer in Latin. Like other beetles, fireflies have 4 wings called elytra, which is a modified, hardened wing cover. They have like relatively big eyes, head with antenna, and pronotum covering the head. It's somewhat hidden, as you can see on the screen. But what makes fireflies special from other beetles is most of them have light organ in their abdomen. As you can see here, the whitish part. And because of that, they are able to produce light. Okay, then you must be wondering, how do fireflies produce light? Well, the key keywords here are 2 things, bioluminescence and cold light. Okay, fireflies produce a chemical reaction inside their bodies that allows them to light up. This type of light production is what we call bioluminescence. The star of the show, okay, let me show you, this is called photocytes. It's a special cell which can be found inside a firefly light organ, okay, which is actually transparent. So it reflects the light. There are other components involved in order to produce light. And for example, in this case, the main recipe is what you need is organic compound that provide energy. In this case is adenosine triphosphate, ATP. Then light emitting compound that is called luciferin, plus some help from luciferase, the enzyme luciferase. Then you got the lights with the help, the presence of oxygen. Okay, so, but unlike a light bulb, which produces a lot of heat instead of light, a firefly's light is called cold light because the light is produced without a lot of energy being lost as heat. Very efficient. Okay, now we know how they produce the lights. So the next question will be, but why? Why do fireflies light up? Okay, fireflies appear to light up for a variety of reasons. A general understanding that you might want to know, or you might already know, that fireflies emit lights to communicate. 1, as a warning to their predators. Okay, for example, firefly larvae use their glows as a warning display to communicate to their predators that they are distasteful. Don't try to eat me, I'm not tasty. Okay, and then the second one is as a unique identity code. Okay, so this one, the rule of thumb is that different species of fireflies has different flashing signals. In this case, well, they use that as a code to ask you, do I know you? Or maybe we are not from the same species. All right, and the third one is to attract their mates. So this is the main point of why they produce light, is also to the male fireflies actually flash their light in specific pattern to attract the females, and the whole mating process could take several hours at night. Okay, right, now talking about species, you must be wondering, right? How many firefly species altogether? Let's have a look. In the world, we have more than 2,000 species. And in Singapore alone, we have at least 10 species. When I say the word at least, I actually means that species counting is still ongoing. So probably we have 12, 14, and more than that. Okay, so this brings us to a bonus question that I would like to ask. Before we go to further, before I explain further, I would like to ask you to take a guess. How many species in this photo can you see? Let's take a poll. So maybe I will give about 1 minute, or maybe 30 seconds. Let me pull out the poll here. Okay, if you can see now, right, let's take a guess. How many species that you can see from this photo alone? So there are 10 objects here. I can say object or specimen. Or are they actually 10 specimens, or actually just few of them? Or are they all belong to one species, or are they more than one species? Are they 3 species, 6 species? Could be 9, or they are all 10 species? Take a guess. So I can see that now the numbers are running. Okay. Right, we have 30 seconds to go, 40 seconds, 20 seconds to go. Okay, this is interesting. So you have 3, 6, 9, or 10. So definitely not 2 species, right? Okay. Okay, time's up. Let me end the polling. And right, okay, I share the result right now. So the answer is actually 6. So, see, yes, 6 species. All right, how do we get that? Most of you got right. 40% of you got right. Some of you actually think that it's actually 10 species. Then followed by 3 species. So, well, it's not that easy. Let's go. Let's see. If you got 6, you got it right, but don't worry, it's not that easy. Again, the clue here is the ventral part, the underside of the body. Okay. As you can see here, the underside of the body is the whitish part of the organ, the light organ. And if you are referring only the upper side of the body, that means that it can be just any beetles. Okay. So it's not that easy, right? If you look at the number 1, then number 2, even the whitish part, the light organ could be very similar to each other, but they are different species. They are different from each other. Okay, and then number 5 and number 6, recently based on molecular delimitation, it could be just one. Sorry, number 4 and number 5 is actually could be same species. But until now, we're still investigating it. Let the scientists do the job. But at the moment, what I'm trying to say is that if you are referring only to photos, it could not be that easy to guess, isn't it? Right. So you might have heard this before, that identifying species is not an easy task. Without light, again, fireflies are just like any other beetles that you might encounter. Bear in mind that sometimes identifying a firefly based on a photo wouldn't come easy. Okay, but when it comes to species level, most of the time that you need a bit more time. In addition to that, people who identify the fireflies, the so-called firefly taxonomists, rely on male fireflies for species identification because the male fireflies have a very unique form of light organ. And then also they have interesting, unique features, some internal structure of that. But then again, this can only be done, these features can only be examined under the microscope. So microscope is our best friend. Okay then, now, so the next question will be, well, you know that in order to identify species, in this case of fireflies, it's always good to have specimen from male fireflies. But if you encounter fireflies and you would like the expert to identify them for you, how do you know which one is male, which one is female, which one is even non-adult? Okay, right, you can tell the male and female adults by the shape of their light organ. In this case, female firefly's light organ takes up only one segment of her body. Okay, and then the male firefly's light organ takes up two segments of his abdomen. In some species, the male and female fireflies look even much more different from each other. Okay, so in this case, some females actually looks like larvae. They are called larviform females. Interesting, isn't it? It's not just one segment of light organ, not just two segments of light organ. It also means that the larviform female can also produce light. But next one means that this means that not all fireflies can fly. Here is an example, okay? The larviform female. This is from genus Lamprigera. I observed this one, recorded this video of female Lamprigera in Bukit Kiara, Kuala Lumpur. She cannot fly, so she has to emit very bright glow so that the flying male fireflies are able to locate her. This one is about 4 centimeters, if I'm not mistaken. So it is quite interesting, mind-blowing, right? So next one would be, now, like, where to find firefly now that you have that many species? 2,000 in the world and only 10, so far 10 species in Singapore, 50 and over 50 or almost 100 species in Malaysia or Thailand. But where to look for them? Well, again, fireflies are found all over the world, in principle, from North and South America to Europe and Asia, except Antarctica. Most firefly species have one thing in common: standing water. That's why generally where you can find water, we can find forests, humid, they love humid and warm environment like our region, Southeast Asia, especially areas like freshwater, Melaleuca swamp, freshwater swamp, mangrove, lowland, or highland forests. Okay then, so next question would be, how long do fireflies live? Well, fireflies have a complete metamorphosis life cycle, which contains 4 stages: egg, larva, pupa, and adult. Some species take longer time to complete their life cycle. Okay, some species take shorter time. On average, I would say it would take about 3 to 7 months. Most of the time spent actually during larva stage, about 70%. The life cycle you are looking at right now belongs to Throctix firefly, which is our Southeast Asian special. Interesting fact is that fireflies are known to glow as larvae. However, in some species, they cannot glow when they emerge as adult. This means not all adult fireflies can produce light. Okay, yet then we know they don't live that long, right? So do they eat? And if yes, what do they eat? Well, in their larva stage, fireflies are carnivorous. They eat soft-bodied insects that live on or in the ground, like snails, slugs, worms, or other larvae. As they mature and turn into adult beetles, they do one of several things, depending on which species of firefly they are, species of firefly. Okay, some firefly species eat nectar or pollen of flowers. Some don't eat anything at all. In this case, most Southeast Asian fireflies only need water to survive. And some others eat smaller fireflies. Well, in this case, it's only observed so far from North American fireflies, and they are called femme fatale fireflies. In other words, the adult firefly, when they emerge as adult, they don't need to eat. They don't really have time to eat, and it's normally their time is spent looking for a mate. Okay, next question is, what animals eat fireflies? So now we know fireflies prey on snails, slugs, or other larvae, small larvae. So what animals eat fireflies? Okay, although fireflies have lights, remember that I told in the beginning that fireflies use the light as a warning signal to tell the predator that they are not pleasant to be eaten. But sometimes, you know, they cannot always escape from being eaten for dinner. Amphibians are the top list. In this case, frogs and toads. If you even Google on internet or YouTube, you can see actually frogs. There are videos about frogs having discovered as having lights inside of their stomach. Bats are also one of them, and some birds, also some spiders. Okay, now we have covered 9 questions about fireflies, and then I have provided the answers, and now probably you have know more about fireflies, but I'm pretty sure there are 5 cool things you probably did not know about fireflies because they have not been revealed before, or people don't care much about this before. But this one, bear in mind, this special session is within Singapore context. Okay, early note. Actually, when people ask me like, do we have fireflies? Yes, we do have fireflies in Singapore, but then people thought it's only recently, but actually there is already notes about firefly, the observation of fireflies in Singapore. And this one, I would say as early, maybe as 1866, and probably even much earlier. This is not scientific record. This is just based on the notes, personal observation, and what was written by Edmund de Haley, who wrote in Souvenir of a campaign in the Far East from France to Singapore, where he described the beauty of the vegetation lit up by fireflies as if by magic. That's how wonderful it is to describe the magic lights of fireflies in the past, in many hundred years ago, right? But if you want to know more about this, I'm not going to talk more about this because I'm sure you can download and read the book from our website. Go and find it about it. Okay, then next, did you know actually Singapore has the Comtesse firefly? What is that? Oh, cool. Okay, so there is this species that I like to call the Comtesse firefly, or it's actually the name is Pteroptyx benai Olivier, described from Singapore in 1909. This firefly, a firefly from Singapore that was described as a new species and named after a very wealthy woman, Comtesse du Bion. So amongst her many collections were several of Leonardo da Vinci's works. She had a ship built that was named the Nirvana as part of the voyage to the Far East, including Singapore. This species is actually quite special, as so far you can only be found on the east coast of Peninsular Malaysia, Malaysian states like Terengganu, Pahang, Johor Timur, Johor East, and Terengganu, Sarawak, and Sabah. But however, although it was described from Singapore, however, no scientific report of this species since it was described over 100 years ago. Well, we don't know yet whether it's, maybe for now we can call it has been extirpated from Singapore. But what we are seeing right now, you are seeing right now on the screen is the original specimen, which is now deposited at the National Museum of Natural History, Paris. Remember, in the beginning of this presentation, we learned that not all fireflies glow as adults. Well, that will answer your question why we have more than 10 species, but I haven't seen any of them, right? This is because among the list of Singapore's firefly species, at least 3 species identified so far to be non-luminous. They cannot produce light, so they are called dark fireflies. They look like other beetles unless taxonomists identify them later in the lab. One extra note about non-luminous fireflies is that although they cannot produce light, the way they communicate, they have their way to communicate with each other, that is using pheromone. Okay, number 4 is something to do about the long-lived firefly. Did you know that there is a firefly species that has been living for a long time in Singapore, but no one knows about it? Probably some of us. But this species is called Pyrocilia fumigata, that has lived in Singapore since at least 100 years ago. only recently that it was discovered there is a record of specimen collected by Wallace, and through recent biodiversity in research in Singapore, we also noted that you can spot this species in some forest patches in Singapore just recently. So we have records since 1854 or between 1854 to 1862. We also have from 2010 until present day. So they are easily, you may spot the male quite easily, but a female of this species, especially this genus Pyrocilia, is a rare sight. The interesting fact here is that the female firefly of this species cannot fly and usually hidden somewhere under the leaves. Until today, I myself have not encountered the female of this species. So definitely, this interesting species needs further research. Yeah, and on the second note is that how it looks like. So the female of the genus is wingless. Actually, there has a wing, but a reduced wing. So in this case, this is just example of Pyrocilia prolongata from Taiwan. So they are from the same genus, but they are could be the same look. But in general form, this is how it looks like if you ever encounter the female of Pyrocilia prolongata. And finally, I reserve this the best because not many people know that Singapore has a synchronous firefly species. Is it true? Well, many of you do not know that Singapore still has 2 congregating firefly species that live exclusively in mangrove, but there are not that many anymore in terms of number of individuals, so they cannot make up as a spectacular display as this that you are seeing right now. But if their population is increasing, this is what the population looks like when they perform synchronous flashing display. Spectacular, right? But remember, what we are seeing right now is the final stage of the life cycle of fireflies. The adult can live a few months only, then they die. What is important is, remember, is the larva stage. What do the larvae feed on? What kind of snail they like to eat? So this is not simple. We might be able to get back this population in Singapore, but we need to think more. It's not that simple, and we need to understand the complete life cycle of the species before we start to do conservation of the habitat. Conservation of habitat means not just for the adult, but also for the immature stages of the firefly. So especially in a degraded mangrove habitats like in Singapore. For that, I think my message to all, be a light to the world. Let's keep the firefly magic alive. So support us through support our firefly research and conservation through donation, research grant, and be firefly volunteers if you can. And if you want to know more about fireflies, we have this Fireflyer International Network. You can Google about it. And also for now, among the scientists, it's also has been established IUCN SSC Firefly Specialist Group. I'm one of them. And I hope that we all together can keep the firefly magic alive. That's a wrap. With that, thank you very much. There's a question, one question is, adult fireflies lose their ability to light. What has happened to their bioluminescent photocyte cells? Well, this is actually a very good question. So for some reason, I think it's a part of an evolutionary process also. Fireflies adults has become like, not all, but it's still under investigation what is the origin of firefly bioluminescence. But it's also said that, actually the species evolved first before they actually get the lights later on. So basically what we are looking at now, the non-luminous firefly is the most, what do you call it, the old category of the fireflies itself. So they are the one in the ruminant group of this group of fireflies. So I am specifically on bioluminescent fireflies. I'm working only on flashing fireflies. So in this case, I could not provide more information about that. But it's very interesting question to further investigate what happened to the loss of the photocyte cell. Which is actually a very good question. I will take into the next research into my next research. Yeah, and where can we see fireflies in Singapore? There are certain areas that I can announce here because it's a public park, like Pasir Ris Park. I think it has been already known by many that you can just go, you can actually observe fireflies there. Take your time at night and just walk along the boardwalk and look down, not up, but because you will see the glowing lava. So mostly you can see the lava most of the time, but not the adult. But if you are lucky, you can spot them flying around. So Pasir Ris Park is one of the areas that you can easily found. But remember again, standing water, fresh where there are forest patches, you might, if you are lucky, you can find Pyrocilia fumigata. But this one is, please do not catch them. But this is something that you can observe quietly. It's quite easy to spot them actually. That's one thing that I would like to tell you guys. Okay, so there is do you use a genetic? Okay, there's a lot of questions. I'm all right. Number 2 is, what interested you in learning about fireflies? Okay, I like this question. Actually, I have been working or studying about fireflies since 2006 during my final year project. So my supervisor gave me like topics. You need to choose. Then I like, okay, I gave her 7 proposals, all rejected. And finally someone told me, hey, there are fireflies. And I said, oh, I never actually see fireflies in my life, my entire life. And then they say, oh, you should go and see and maybe study about them. So long story short, for the first time I saw fireflies in Kuala Sepetang, Perak. And I just fall in love with the fireflies. And until now, I think what made me interested about learning about fireflies is they sparks my curiosity about science. I ask a lot of questions, why they are here, not the other forests, why they are what do they eat. Then I start to keep asking myself about this kind of question, and how do we protect them? That is my goal of research. Okay, what role do fireflies play in our ecosystem? Okay, I would like to say that I would always advocate that fireflies, as other invertebrates, fireflies into other invertebrates as well. I mean, is an icon species. In this case, is fireflies help. If you look at the habitat requirement of fireflies, you can see different stage of firefly require different kind of habitat requirement. So in this case, if you want to conserve firefly, you actually need also to protect the food that they prey on. For example, in this case, you also need to study about snails, slugs, or other worms that living in and around the area. Let's talk about just Pasir Ris Park, right? If we want to get the fireflies back, Troptis malaki, the synchronous flashing fireflies, back to Pasir Ris, we cannot only look at the adult stage. We need to look at the entire life cycle. So it is actually indicator to the health ecosystem that I'm trying to say, but it could be quite optimistic. But I think this is something that I like to advocate about. So protecting fireflies, not just protecting adults, but the entire ecosystem that they are living in. Okay. How far can a firefly fly? This is depends on the question. If you're talking about solitary firefly, the Pyrocilia fumigata, the big one, the last one, second last slide, you actually can see that actually can fly quite a long range. No one has done any study about that yet, but probably as far as they can reach the male. Remember, the male of firefly had to fly around to look for the female. So this one is because the habitat for this species is quite different, and they are resilient species. They don't have a specific food that they not food, but specific, like not like mangrove areas, you know. So it depends on the species. For the one, the synchronous flashing fireflies may not be able to fly so long. They are very small. They are just like less than 1 centimeter, and the other one is about 7 centimeter. So I think it depends on species I can see right now. Can fireflies be eaten? Yes. Well, this is depends. If we are talking about human, if firefly be eaten, I would suggest no. They have their lucibufagin, some kind of toxin. That's how they actually kill their predator, their prey. So they inject the toxin in the victim's body, so that they can become paralyzed and they can start, eat the flesh out of it. So they are carnivorous, quite vicious, firefly larvae. When fireflies active the most, time of the year, time of the day, in Southeast Asia, I can say generally is all the year round, and they can just yeah, we are pretty happy that we can see fireflies every day. And tips is always like 2 hours or after rain is actually always good time to see fireflies. Because they love the humidity and they like to fly around at that time. Oh,
Okay,
actually, there are a lot more questions, but I cannot answer.
Yeah, I think we have one final question here before we end for our break. Maybe you can help to answer, Dr. Wan. How old did the oldest firefly live?
All right. Okay, generally, okay, that's, I think I answered last time, 3 to 7 months. If we are talking about the entire lifespan, it's about 7 months, I think the oldest. But we also have one genus called Longlived. Remember, I showed the glowworm, the female glowworm that is a big one, and also the photo that you see for this event, the photo cover of this event. That one can live up to 1 year. So it really depends on species. But the one you are interested in, usually synchronous flashing fireflies, the entire population could only like survive for 3 months at least. So again, we are talking about 2,000 species in the world and at least 10 species in Singapore. Right.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Wan, for sharing about your research and your passion about the fireflies. I hope you get a chance to see the fireflies as well. And I hope you guys enjoy the talk. Yeah. And now we'll take a break for lunch. I know you are hungry, but after lunch, don't go away. Or if you need to, just go for your lunch. We will have the next talk at 1 p.m. We have Maushan sharing about the fantastic mini bees and where to find them.